in the heart of the Galactic Union Hall, under a ceiling so wide it could hold an ocean of stars, the representatives of over 900 alien civilizations gathered for what many thought would be a formality, a simple rejection. And yet, there was an atmosphere of celebration. Beings of all shapes and sizes floated, hovered, or stood stiff in jeweled robes and shimmering skin, buzzing with glee. Cameras streamed the event across millions of systems, relaying to every corner of the galaxy that Earth's a so-called mud world. The carbon apes of Sector 9 was finally going to be officially laughed out of the Union. Not just declined, but mocked. Publicly, it was tradition, some said. It was protocol, others joked. It was entertainment, all agreed. Humanity's ambassador stood alone on the elevated dais, small beneath the luminous towers of alien architecture, dressed in a dark, unadorned uniform. His face, young, calm, unreadable, was broadcast across the galaxy. No one could quite place his expression. Was he nervous? Was he arrogant? Or was he merely tired? He had said nothing yet. He only stood silently while the Syrixian Chancellor, gelatinous being with a silver crown suspended over its fluidic head, spoke into the main podium, its voice translated into 1,000 languages. "Let us not waste time," the Chancellor gurgled, its words followed by low chuckles. "Earth, a world of violence, pollution, and instabilities, to ask for a seat in this union." Murmurs of laughter spread. Let us recall, friends, that only 80 solar cycles ago, this same species fought wars over flags. Over old books? The laughter began to rise. A floating orb from the Tazari delegation spun and sparkled. "They used combustion for flight," it blurted. A reptilian counselor hissed in delight. "Still do," added a Kraylock judge, causing another wave of laughter to burst like fire across the hall. The human ambassador didn't flinch. He simply raised his hand gently. The hall dimmed as the system registered a request to speak. Request was denied. More laughter. The Chancellor continued, waving a slimy pseudopod toward the human. "Do you wish to defend your kind?" The Chancellor mocked. "Shall we grant the primitive a few final words?" The hall roared with amusement. A few delegates clapped. Someone even projected a cartoon of a human clubbing another human over the head. Still, the ambassador did not speak. He simply looked out across the crowd, then slowly tapped the data crystal on the podium. It flashed red. A single message began transmitting to the entire galaxy. Uncensored, unfiltered, sent across all major frequencies. "This is Earth's final request for peace. You have 1 cycle to reconsider." The words hung in the air like a sharp blade. The laughter died slowly. Not all at once, more like a balloon deflating than a glass shattering. There was a strange silence, followed by murmurs of confusion. 1 cycle? 1 galactic day? Is that a threat? Someone asked, half laughing. "No," the ambassador said softly, speaking for the first time. "It's a courtesy." Then he turned and walked away. No ceremony, no farewell, no last plea. He simply left the grand hall while thousands of aliens watched in stunned silence or snickering disbelief. Cameras followed him until he vanished into the dark tunnel leading back to his ship. A few moments later, the laughter started again, but now it was more forced, more cautious. And then came the first signal. It was faint, barely a whisper. A mining station near the Helix expanse detected it, a human signal with no encryption, no message, just a steady pulse. It wasn't supposed to exist. The Helix expanse was far from any known human base. A patrol ship was sent to investigate it. Didn't return? The second signal came 12 hours later. This one was different. It wasn't human. It was a distress call from the patrol ship, screaming, then static. By the next day, 3 more vessels had disappeared near the expanse. Systems went dark. Trade routes began experiencing sudden navigation failures. Star charts were being altered, coordinates leading to nowhere. The Galactic Communications Relay received a short, automated signal from deep within uncharted space. You laughed. Now you learn. It was branded onto the side of a drifting Cyrixian cargo ship, found charred and glassed, its entire hull melted from the inside out. Panic had not yet gripped the galaxy, but confusion had. And confusion was the first step. Back on Earth there was no visible celebration, no global speech, no show of force. In fact, the people of Earth carried on as usual, working, eating, arguing, inventing. But beneath the cities, below the oceans, and hidden beyond the edge of mapped space, ancient machines were waking. Black satellites, long dormant, rotated slowly to aim their strange lenses into the void. Artificial minds, sealed in crypts of steel, began receiving encrypted orders written in dead languages only the Earth's oldest AI could understand at an orbital station above Mars. An old engineer named Bishop stood in front of a massive console. He had waited for this moment for 40 years. The council denied us, a voice said behind him. Bishop didn't turn. He simply nodded. They laughed. A pause. Then, do we proceed with the original timeline? No, Bishop said quietly. Proceed with the corrected one. Activate Project Silence. Across 100 hidden bunkers on moons, asteroids, and cloaked stations, the command echoed. Thousands of soldiers, if you could still call them, that opened their eyes. They had no names, no memories, only objectives. Their bodies had been enhanced with nanotech, their minds hardened with quantum conditioning. They didn't speak. They simply moved. On a distant listening station, a Cyrixian technician watched a strange object appear on his scope. It wasn't even moving at sublight speed. It was ... skipping. He blinked. It's gone, he whispered. What do you mean gone? The captain asked. It moved again. The console exploded before he could finish. The entire station went dark in the Galactic Union Hall, now filled with murmurs of discomfort and cautious meetings. The Chancellor of Cyrixia dismissed the recent disappearances as natural anomalies and human desperation. But even he had begun to feel a strange dread. He hadn't slept in 3 days. Something about the way the human had looked at him calm. It's like a man watching ants laugh at a matchbox. By the 4th day, a fleet of small Cyrixian warships was dispatched to orbit Earth's moon.
Ow.
The plan was to scare humanity, to remind them. Who ruled the stars? The feed was live. Beamed across thousands of planets, Cyrixian ships approached the moon, weapons hot. They circled Earth's lone natural satellite like sharks. Earth, respond, the commander said. You have violated Union procedures. Withdraw your threats or face disciplinary. His words cut out. Every camera went dark. For 4 minutes. In 21 seconds, no one could see anything. Then, the feed came back. Where there had been 15 Cyrixian ships, now there were none. Just silence. Not even debris. Not a scratch on the moon. Nothing. At first, many thought it was a broadcast. Error. Others accused the humans of hacking the feed. But soon, an independent probe confirmed Etha Cyrixian ships had vanished. All data logs wiped. Sensors scorched. A faint residue of exotic particles clung to the vacuum particles that shouldn't exist. Particles that hadn't been seen. Since the age of the precursor wars, that's when fear truly began. Because suddenly, Earth wasn't a joke anymore. It wasn't backward. It wasn't primitive. It was something else entirely. A being from the Tazari delegation said it best. We thought they were children playing with fire, he said during a special broadcast. But now I believe the fire is ... alive. Meetings were called. Emergency alliances proposed. Borders sealed. The Galactic Union prepared to declare Earth a hostile rogue state. But no declaration was needed because by then, Earth had already moved. From the edge of the Perseus arm, a probe detected a fleet black. Sharp, triangular, moving without thrusters, without lights, moving faster than light, without bending space. Every known rule of physics said it was impossible, and yet there it was, silent, approaching, in their arrogance. The galaxy had mocked Earth. In their ignorance, they had rejected it. Now something was coming. Something built not for diplomacy, not for respect, but for one purpose only: war. And as the signal pulsed once more from the dark edge of known space, steady, cold, and final, the entire galaxy realized. The laughter had stopped forever. The Cyrixian Empire had always been arrogant, but that arrogance had never been tested like this before. For centuries, they'd played the role of bully among the stars. Their fleets were sleek, their soldiers genetically enhanced, their diplomacy cold and cruel. They claimed entire systems with a single message: submit or vanish. Most species did. Some resisted. The Cyrixians believed they were the natural rulers of the outer sectors. They laughed when Earth dared to speak as an equal. And they didn't stop laughing when 15 of their warships went silent near Earth's moon. They assumed it was a trick, or maybe sabotage, or glitch. Nothing more. The High War Council of Cyrixia met beneath the great crystal dome of their capital planet, with red sun rays gleaming off their black armored robes. The generals sat in a circular formation, cold, cruel, and without a single human among them. They reviewed the footage again, slow frame by frame. There were no explosions, no weapons fired. Just static, then silence. General Kazor barked, "This is cowardice from Earth, a petty act of digital mischief. If they want war, let them choke on our guns." A vote was taken. It lasted less than 3 minutes. Unanimous dart would burn, and so they sent Fleet Prime, a division of 60 warships, carriers, and battlecruisers armed with fusion blades and plasma hurricanes. It was overkill, and they knew it. And the plan was simple: attack Earth's outer colonies, first Europa, Titan, and Mars, break their supply chains. Then hammer the homeworld until it begged for surrender. But the Cyrixians didn't know what Earth had been building in the shadows, and they had already made the one mistake they couldn't take back. They fired first. The first blow fell on Europa, where a civilian research base operated quietly under the surface. It had no shields, no visible weapons, just a beacon pulsing weak light into the void. The Cyrixian fleet came in fast, their black ships descending like predators with glowing bellies. They broadcast a warning: evacuate. You have 10 minutes. Before orbital cleansing, humans didn't respond. 10 minutes later, they launched plasma torpedoes at the ice moon. The impact sent white shards into orbit. The base was obliterated, flattened, and melted. Cyrixian commanders laughed in their sealed command rooms. Earth's first colony had been vaporized. One strike. One victory. Then came the second message, not from Earth, but from behind the Cyrixian fleet. Judgment registered. Response calculated. Prepare for silence. The voice was not human. It was something else: cold, measured, completely emotionless. Cyrixian admirals spun toward the source. Identify the sender. But the signal didn't trace. It came from multiple angles, every frequency, every direction. The ship's AIs started screaming warnings: power surges, temperature drops, hull vibration anomalies. Then the lights went out. One by one, mighty warships began shutting down, not from attacks, but from within. The lead ship's command crew gasped as the stars outside their window dimmed, replaced by a silhouette sharp. Angles, impossible curves, and a surface that absorbed light itself. Ship unlike anything they had seen. It didn't fire weapons. It simply spoke again. Silence begins. A moment later, a ripple passed through the Cyrixian fleet, like a wave across glass. Holes crumbled inward. A steel folded like paper. Flames that should have burned in space flickered inside sealed decks. Screams echoed across coms, then vanished. In 27 seconds, all 60 ships were gone. No missiles, no lasers, just gone. The attack wasn't just destruction, it was erasure. Back on Earth, General Bishop stood in silence within a deep underground war room. The holotable before him showed a fading red cloud where the Cyrixian fleet used to be. He said nothing. One of his aides whispered, "Was that Omega Black?" "No," Bishop replied, his face stoned. That was just phase 1. They asked for a war. We showed them a warning. Far across the stars, panic began to spread. The Cyrixian Empire went into lockdown. Borders sealed, military recalled. Propaganda flooded every network. The human threat is contained. Our glorious fleet succeeded. Earth has been punished. But too many knew the truth. No comes from the fleet. No data, no wreckage. Only one message, intercepted by an alien trading vessel days later. You fired first. Now your stars will go dark. The message wasn't sent from a known human frequency. It came from a classified black signal band, one never used before in galactic history. A code buried so deep, only Earth's oldest satellites could decode. It, meanwhile, strange phenomena started near the Cyrixian core systems. Entire satellites vanished overnight. Weather control grids malfunctioned, artificial moons fell from orbit cut cleanly in half. Their empire was fraying from the edges, not from bombardment, but sabotage far beyond Cyrixian understanding. And then came the ship. It appeared above. Cyrix Prime itself, capital of the empire. One moment the skies were clear, the next. A massive object blocked out the twin suns. At first, they thought it was a moon. Then it moved. No engines, no sound. It hovered like a god. Long, black, and geometrically wrong, almost painful to look at. It bore no flags, no signals. Only a single glowing human symbol burned onto its underbelly. XO1, Vindicator class. Project Silence, Cyrixian. Orbital defense opened fire instantly. Over 100 missiles screamed toward the object. Lasers followed. The sky lit up like a second sunrise, and yet, ship remained untouched. Every missile disappeared 5 kilometers before impact. Every laser bent, rerouted midair. The Vindicator didn't respond. It only watched, terrified. Citizens on the surface looked up as the object pulsed a dull red light. Then came the final message. This one was broadcast in every Cyrixian dialect. No encryption. It's no mystery. This is not retaliation. This is recalibration. You have mocked, murdered, and manipulated, and you assumed your stars would never fade. This is Earth, and we are done being quiet. Then, without a weapon fired, the Vindicator emitted a low hum. Moments later, every power system on Cyrix Prime failed. Artificial light collapsed. Defense networks went blind. Engines died in mid-flight. Entire cities plunged into blackness. Hospitals, towers, government bunkers, silence, and in the dark. Every Cyrixian knew Earth had come, not for conquest, but for correction. Back on the Galactic Union Station, erupted. Emergency sessions, panicked ambassadors, threat assessments off the charts. Species who once mocked Earth now begged for context. What does Earth want? One ambassador cried. Are they trying to rule us? They rejected the Union. Another shouted, they didn't want a seat at our table. They're flipping the table over. A lone analyst, pale and shaking, stood with trembling hands. They're not flipping the table, he said. They're replacing it. From 1,000 distant systems, whispers began rising. The humans warned us. The laughter stopped. They waited until we fired first. Across colonies, murals of the Vindicator appeared, overnights, spray-painted, projected, etched. It became more than a weapon. It became a symbol, a myth. Shadows spreading across galactic memory. On a quiet moon near the edge of Cyrixian space, a small alien family huddled in an old temple. The sky shimmered above them. The father, old and wrinkled, whispered to his daughter, "You asked what the humans are." She nodded. He pointed up toward the stars. They are what happens when the galaxy forgets humility. The galaxy's attention had shifted. For centuries, the Central Empires believed they controlled the flow of history. They wrote the laws. They maintained the peace. They punished rebellion with brutal swiftness. But now everything had changed. Earth, once dismissed as primitive, had not only destroyed a Cyrixian fleet, but left their capital in total silence without firing a single conventional weapon, and worse. They had not claimed victory. They had made no speeches. They had not asked for surrender. They had simply disappeared. This made the galaxy nervous in a way it had never been before, because it meant Earth wasn't done. Behind Earth's silence, there was something more dangerous than rage: preparation. Something was building, and no one could see it. No one could understand it. And deep within Earth itself, beneath layers of defense satellites, kinetic weapon grids, and orbital decoys, there were places no outsider had ever seen. These places even most humans didn't know existed. One of those places was Facility 11, hidden to miles beneath the Antarctic ice. Cold steam rolled down titanium walls as General Bishop entered the command vault, his boots echoing through a narrow corridor guarded by 2 genetically reinforced sentries. The door was 200 tons of steel, sealed by retina, bone print, and ancient code. Inside, lights flickered softly in pale blue. A single round table stood in the center, surrounded by 6 men and women whose faces didn't appear on any government record. They had no names, no public titles, no pasts. These were the architects, the shadow minds behind humanity's real rise. They didn't run Earth's public governments. They ran the real Earth's, the one buried beneath civilian infrastructure. Behind diplomatic speeches and media networks, a different world built in silence, shaped by fear and powered by technology centuries ahead of what the galaxy believed humans possessed. General Bishop took his seat. No introductions, no formalities. The meeting had already begun. "They've seen Vindicator," said a woman in a matte black uniform, her eyes unnaturally steady. "That was never part of the original sequence. The Syrixians broke sequence when they attacked Europa," Bishop replied flatly. "The outer colonies are panicking," said another man, skin pale, voice cold. "They're broadcasting distress to anyone who will listen. Should we respond?" A moment of silence passed. Then, eldest among them, known only as Director Zero, spoke. "We respond when we decide to respond," he said. Not a second before, there was a collective nod. This wasn't about revenge. It was about timing. The galaxy thought Earth's weapons were a response. But they weren't. They were the plan. For the past 100 years, Earth had built in shadows. Not just ships and soldiers, but concepts. Systems of war so advanced they couldn't even be described using current science. Quantum-linked minds, AI colonies that bred their own logic trees, human-augmented warriors grown inside synthetic, wombs not born, not raised, just designed. And at the top of it all was Project Genesis. The room fell into silence as Bishop brought up the Genesis file. A 3D hologram spun above the Tabola humanoid figure, glowing with internal light, but not human in the old sense. Taller, cleaner, more symmetrical. Bones forged from layered graphene.
Muscle laced with fading fiber.
Eyes that could see into the ultraviolet and infrared spectrums. Skin that healed faster than it tore. This was what Earth had become. They had taken the best of biology, stripped away what made it weak, and replaced it with what made it unstoppable, and they weren't mass-produced like old armies. Each Genesis unit was unique, programmed, cultivated, mentally tuned for a specific purpose. Some were assassins, some were tacticians, some were pure shock force, and they didn't feel fear or hunger or pain, only mission parameters. One such unit, G11, known internally as Spectre, was already moving across the galaxy. Alone, no escort. No orders since deployment, and yet he knew exactly where to go, because Genesis units didn't follow. Maps, they followed threat frequencies, and right now, the highest threat frequency on the board was the Jernari Combined Empire that had publicly applauded Syrixia's destruction, while secretly accelerating their own war programs to match. Earth's new presence. They weren't afraid. They were preparing to challenge humanity, but Earth had already sent someone. Spectre moved like a shadow across the stars. No ship, no crew, just a suit woven from dark matter threads, powered by a heart that never stopped beating. He didn't need life support. He didn't need rest. He was war in its purest form given a face. He reached Jernari space within 3 days, an impossible feat, unless you understood how Earth had broken FTL mechanics decades ago. He boarded their central data facility without being seen. He didn't destroy anything, didn't kill anyone. He simply accessed their mainframe and left a single message. We see you. When the Jernari found the breach, they panicked, because not only had Spectre walked through their most secure systems like fog, he had done it without opening a single door. Meanwhile, back at Facility 11, the architects watched the galaxy spin. In chaos, reports flooded in. The Tazari were retreating from trade routes. The Kalari Federation had activated all emergency beacons, and 3 independent empires had begun secret communication channels to Earth, requesting submission terms. Not alliances, not negotiations, submission. The architects reviewed the transmissions with calm eyes. We've done it, said Bishop, almost surprised. They're surrendering, and we haven't even attacked them. But Director Zero shook his head. No, he said. They haven't seen our real strength yet. There was silence again. A heavy kind. Because everyone at that table knew what real strength meant. It wasn't the Vindicator. It wasn't Genesis. It was Omega Black. A weapon so powerful it had never been tested. A thing so destructive, so final, that it didn't just destroy ships or planets, it rewrote the rules of warfare, and it was hidden far away. Inside a dark space pocket dimension Earth had created outside normal reality. No one even knew it. Existed. Except the architects. And someone else. Far beyond the edge of the known galaxy. In a region called the Dead Light, an ancient species known only as the Forgotten had begun to stir. They were older than the Union, older than most stars. They had hidden from the galaxy for eons, watching, waiting, and now they had seen something that terrified them. Earth's silence to them. Silence was worse than war, because it meant certainty. The Forgotten sent a message not to the Union, not to the Syrixians, not to the Jernari, but directly to Earth. It arrived in a burst of radiation. Inside Earth's quantum gate, the message was simple. We remember what came before. You were not supposed to awaken. The cage is broken. Inside Facility 11, the architects stared at the decoded signal. One of them, for the first time in years, whispered a word none of them wanted to hear. Precursor. Because now it wasn't just about revenge, or strength, or even power. Now it was about origin. Who were humans really? Why had they advanced so violently? Why had their biology allowed such rapid development when no other species evolved this way? What ancient force had touched Earth? What forgotten hand had set this path in motion? Earth had always assumed it was alone, but perhaps it was part of something older, something terrifying, and the galaxy was about to find out. The galaxy had been wrong about many things. They were wrong to laugh, wrong to mock, wrong to dismiss humanity as backward, divided, and too late to matter. They were wrong when they thought Earth had shown all its cards after silencing the Syrixians, because Earth had shown them nothing yet. The Vindicator was a whisper. Genesis was a shadow, but what came next would not be quiet. It would not be surgical. It would not be clean. It would be war. Real war. The kind that didn't just erase fleets, but rewrote the very meaning of dominance in the galaxy. And Earth was ready. The architects of Earth had been preparing for over a century. Every failed treaty, every insult broadcast across the stars, every act of violence committed against humans outside their solar system had been recorded, cataloged, and filed under one long single directive, final authorization. And now it had been granted. From the dark edges of the Kuiper Belt, entire fleets emerged, ships without lights, without registration codes, running on drives so advanced they left no trace in space-time. The galaxy called them ghosts. But they were very real. They were the Abyss Fleet, Earth's hidden armada, kept secret even from their own governments, controlled directly by the black systems buried beneath Antarctica and Mars. Each ship was a monster, sharp like obsidian, shaped not by engineers, but by AI entities that had studied every known battle formation in recorded galactic history. These ships didn't just carry weapons, they were weapons. Their hulls could absorb direct starfire. Their minds could predict an enemy's next 10 moves. They communicated not with radio, but with quantum linking, instantaneous, unbreakable, untraceable, and they were all moving. Destination, the Jernari Combine. The second largest empire in the galaxy and Earth's next target. The Jernari had been preparing for retaliation, believing Earth would strike as most empires did through border skirmishes. Limited engagements, shows of force. But the humans didn't play by those rules. They had come not to win territory, they had come to end. Challengers. When the Abyss fleet arrived, it did not announce itself. It did not scan. It did not hesitate. It deployed Vortex Protocol. Within moments, the stars around Jernari's outer defense grid bent. Sensors screamed. Gravity twisted. Engines failed. The Jernari High Admiral barely had time to rise from his command seat before half his fleet vanished, sucked into folded pockets of space created by weapons that shouldn't exist. They never saw their enemy. They only saw black specks in the sky moving too fast, too precise, too silent. Jernari's command tried to scramble a response fleet. They sent out planetary warnings. They broadcast emergency alliances. But Earth didn't care. Respond. They simply moved forward one system at a time. Each Jernari stronghold was targeted with a different strategy. Some were hacked from orbit. Lights failed. Systems collapsed. Then silence. Some were hit by orbital kinetic strike rods of pure tungsten, fired at near relativistic speeds. No energy blasts, no plasma trails, just brutal physics, smashing cities into dust without a sound. On others, Genesis units landed directly on the surface. They didn't use tanks. They didn't use traditional armies. They used optimized post-human specialists, dropped in teams of 3 or less. To erase entire cities, one such unit, G11 Spectre, landed alone on Jernari Prime's capital moon. The government compound was buried in 50 feet of armor and, protected by 4,000 elite soldiers, he walked through it in 17 minutes. No explosions. No mess. Only data trails of silent kills, corrupted cameras, and one final message beamed into the Capitol Tower. We were designed for this, and you designed your fate the day you mocked us. Jernari Prime surrendered within an hour, but it didn't matter because Earth wasn't here to take prisoners. This was not conquest. It was a demonstration across the galaxy. Species began to panic. The once untouchable Union was in shambles. Their greatest allies, Syrixia and Jernari, had both fallen within days. Earth hadn't negotiated, hadn't asked for peace, hadn't even offered terms, and that terrified the galaxy more than any weapon ever could, because Earth was treating them not as equals, but as prey. In the Galactic Union Hall, chaos reigned. Delegates screamed across chambers, many already packing to leave. Some tried to organize a collective strike against Earth. Others argued for total surrender. What do they want? Someone shouted, they haven't even made demands. They don't want land, another replied. They want obedience. But they haven't even said that out loud. They want us to understand. And slowly, many did. Smaller civilizations, once confident under the Union's protection, began sending quiet messages to Earth, not as allies, not as enemies. As servants, they pledged support, ships, resources, intelligence. In return, they asked only one thing: spare us. Inside Earth's war room, the architects watched these pleas flood the cum-net. One of them, an old, scarred woman known as Slate, leaned forward and said, "It's begun. The old world is crumbling." Bishop didn't answer. He only watched. The stars on the hologram shift colors as system after system fell under Earth's shadow. "Is Omega Black online?" another asked. "Almost," Slate replied. "Final code locks in place. We can launch within 5 cycles." Bishop turned to her. "Not yet." "Why?" He took a deep breath. "Because I want the galaxy to feel the shape of the storm before it arrives." Then came an unexpected signal. A massive fleet, never before seen, gathered near the galactic core. Over 100,000 ships. A coalition of over 60 species, united under fear, not pride. They had no flag, no anthem. They had only one shared purpose: stop Earth. They called it the Last Stand, the galaxy's most advanced weapons. Most elite warriors and ancient machines brought out of deep slumber were all gathered together, lined in perfect formation, like a wall of defiance. And for a brief moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they could hold the line. Earth watched and responded with one ship, a prototype, Project Tightport. It launched from the hidden dockyards orbiting, Neptune a black spear wrapped in shimmering energy. It was not piloted. It had no crew. It was controlled by an AI born from Earth's darkest researcher, sentient code that had studied every military mistake the galaxy had ever made. Typhon did not warp in near the fleet. It blinked. 1 second it wasn't there. The next, it was inside the center of the enemy formation. Before any commander could issue orders, the Typhon activated its core. A pulse spread in every direction. No sound, no fire, just silence. Ship after ship went dark. Engines died.
Power vanished.
Shields failed, and then came the strike. Not from weapons, but from reality itself. Entire ships unraveled, like paper in wind. Like drawings being erased, the 100,000-strong fleet collapsed in less than 4 minutes. Only 3 ships escaped. One of them sent out a final message, its commander sobbing, "This is not war. This is extinction." Written in equations we were. Never meant to understand. The galaxy had never been more united, and it had never fallen faster. Earth had not just ended battles. It had ended the idea that anyone could stand against them, and they had done it without speaking a word. Now, the stars themselves bent toward a new truth. Humanity did not rise. It awakened. The great empires that once ruled the stars now whispered in fear. Their banners had waved for thousands of years. Their fleets had stretched from rim to rim. Their histories were carved into moons, sung through galaxies, and broadcast in a dozen light languages. They were the legends of old: the Jernari Combine, the Syrixian Dominion, the Keldari Assembly, the Zuthari High Order, and now they were dying. One by one, humanity had not just struck. They had systematically erased the symbols of power that had once stood untouched. Every empire had its stronghold, its fortress world, secure command planets hidden in fortified systems protected by wormhole seals, antimatter defense webs, and black hole gate guardians. Earth didn't care. Earth found them, and Earth burned them. The Keldari tried to retreat into the Shatterbelta region of space, impossible to chart due to gravitational storms and ancient space debris. No ships had ever survived trying to follow anyone into it. The Keldari believed it to be the perfect sanctuary, but one night, deep within their new capital, buried under ice on the fractured moon Texernine, the Keldari Prime Council received a single message through their encrypted channel. "We are already here." Within minutes, the crust of the moon cracked. Light poured through the fissures as something moved beneath the eyes. Not a missile, but a construct. A machine, forged under Earth's crust, buried for 80 years, designed only for siege. It had no name, no registry. It didn't even have a cockpit. The Keldari called it the God-Eater. It tore through their fortresses with silent beams that melted structures from within imploding walls, boiling defenders in their armor. It didn't stop to secure territory. It didn't pause to broadcast surrender terms. Didn't even register the panicked calls for negotiation. Because Earth didn't negotiate. It demonstrated elsewhere. The Zuthari High Order had deployed their sacred fleets in the Pryax Formationa. Centuries-old battle strategy believed to be unbeatable, formed by interlocking armadas that shared shield energy and synced firepower through artificial suns. They surrounded Earth's scout probes, expecting a glorious trap. But Earth didn't respond with ships. They responded with void-song. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a frequency one that had been studied and tested for decades on the far side of Mercury. Developed by AI minds trained in pattern interference and harmonic disruption, when broadcast, the void song didn't destroy ships directly. It broke the minds of those who heard it. Commanders screamed. Engineers tore at their own eyes. Pilots rammed their own cruisers into allies. The Zalthari fleet collapsed from within, not in fire, but in madness. Echoes, in whispers only their species, could hear Earth had learned each empire's weakness, and they struck only once, always perfectly. No second waves. No reinforcements, just silence afterward. The galaxy's civilian worlds began to broadcast a new phrase. It's translated from over 2,000 local dialects. Do not provoke the Terrans. In the Galactic Union, which had once mocked Earth as the dirt world, the chambers sat empty. The giant oval windows that once looked out over the twin suns of Valtranius were now shattered. Moss grew on the steps. No debates happened now, no votes. No peace talks, because there were no sides left to speak for. The humans had not declared themselves emperors. They had not occupied the fallen empires. They hadn't even built new borders. Instead, they moved silently, efficiently, and they watched in. Deep space, a quiet figure drifted inside a black command sphere. Commander Asha Velen, former Mars-born strategist turned Earth overseer. She monitored 17 war zones, 12 communication archives, and all active Genesis units. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold. Behind her in total darkness sat Spectre G11, silent, still armor humming with unseen energy. We are receiving more submission packets, she said. Spectre did not respond. 37 systems today, she added, including the Altani spiral. They used to laugh at us. She turned. You want to say anything about that? Armored figure tilted its head. Laughter always ends before the silence. She nodded. Double quotes? And the last ones? The ones still hiding? The Veil worlds, Spectre asked. She nodded. Let them wait, Spectre said. They'll realize there is no edge to run to. The Veil worlds enchant civilizations that operated in the shadows. Built on secrecy and misdirection, had survived galactic wars for eons by staying hidden, manipulating. From the dark. They believed Earth's wrath would pass over them, but Earth had already infiltrated them, using seeds. Nanite spies hidden in captured ships, code fragments buried in language processors. Implants traded through civilian markets. Earth had already mapped their entire structure when Earth struck. They didn't send a fleet. They sent dreams. Nightmares coded into subconscious pathways. The Veil leaders began to hallucinate, began to doubt, began to turn on each other. Then, on one cold, airless night, every screen across the Veil's hidden systems flickered on, and a single face appeared. Bishop, not a soldier, not a general, a strategist, a ghost. He spoke only once. You shaped the galaxy from the shadows. Now you will be erased by the light. And just like that light's failed, systems collapsed. Entire asteroid cities vanished as if they had never existed, not with fire, but with precision by now. The few surviving empires realized the truth. Earth was not using war for power. They were using war as proof. Proof. Here that mocking humanity had been the last mistake the galaxy would ever make. The last true bastion of resistance. The Varnathi Accord attempted to reach out. They offered ships, treaties, technology, secrets of ancient stargates even. Earth hadn't yet cracked, but Earth didn't want secrets. They already knew. Their AI. Minds had already unraveled the forbidden engines. Already bypassed the gates. Already improved them when the Varnathi envoy arrived. Earth didn't even send a response. They simply switched off every Varnathi ship without firing a shot. Now, Earth stood alone at the top. Not because they demanded it, but because no one else remained, and still they didn't speak. Still, they made no declarations. Instead, they built. They launched silent platforms into orbit around every key system. No weapons. No threats. Only one glowing message on each platform. Let silence teach what laughter forgot. Across the galaxy, life continued dash quietly. No more empire marches. No more war drums. No more debates about Terran backwardness. Just the slow, creeping realization humanity had risen from a forgotten world, and in less than a decade, they had made the galaxy kneel. They had waited not for days, not for months, but for entire star cycles. Across the galaxy, planets stood still. Civilizations froze in time, afraid to speak too loudly, fearing they might trigger something they couldn't understand. Trade routes remained half-filled. Military fleets no longer moved. Empires kept their borders sealed tight, not out of strategy, but out of dread. Because Earth had gone silent, and that silence was louder than any war cry. They called it the Quiet Age, a time when every species, no matter how proud or ancient, felt the weight of Earth's stillness pressing on their necks like a blade. The humans didn't expand. They didn't threaten. They didn't even respond to diplomatic attempts anymore. Instead, they watched. From their great sentinels, from behind the eyes of machines, from the orbit of shattered empires. And then one day, Earth spoke, not with a weapon, not with an invasion, but with a signal. It was barely a whisper at first, just a pulse that stretched through the deep black of space, undeniably artificial, undeniably human. It pinged across long-dead satellites and forgotten beacons. It wasn't coded like any language currently in use. It didn't declare war or ask for alliance. It simply invited. Galactic governments panicked. Was this a trap? A declaration of a new kind of dominance? But the message came again this time with clear coordinates. Deep space. No known stars. A zone of gravity. Anomalies that even black holes avoided. The humans had built something there, and they wanted the galaxy to see it, but only one ship, only one delegation, only one voice. The Galactic Unity Council, once the ruling body of most civilized, was argued for weeks. Each empire wanted to send their own ambassador. Some demanded multiple ships. Others wanted to refuse the invitation altogether. The fear of a trap lingered in every discussion. In the end, it was a child rest that took the risk. The Varnakis Mall. Peace-seeking beings who had refused to join any wars assembled a single-ship mission crewed by philosophers, translators, and a single unarmed AI vessel. Their reasoning was simple. If Earth seeks to trick or trap us, then they've already won. But if they're offering something real, then we must be brave enough to answer. And so, the Varnaki ship Serenity's whisper jumped into the void. The rest of the galaxy held its breath. What they found defied all known understanding at the coordinates Earth had sent. There was no station, no planet, no fleet. Just a field of glowing, floating structures, dozens, maybe hundreds each, shaped like a massive spiral of light and matter. They hovered in perfect stillness, suspended in deep space, forming an impossible latticework of energy, and in the center, rotating slowly, was a construct the size of a gas giant, the voice of Earth. That's what the AI called it. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a ship. It was a cathedral of sound and data. It's built across dimensions, emitting music, language, emotion, and light in waves that resonated across time itself. The Serenity's whisper hovered at a respectful distance. And then, the construct spoke not in words, but in memories. The Varnaki delegation stood still as a beam of golden energy enveloped their ship. It didn't harm them. It didn't hack them. It simply shared. In seconds, they were no longer aboard their vessel. Their minds had been projected into something far greater. They stood on the surface of ancient Earth. The skies burned with pollution. The oceans choked. The cities crumbled, and they saw humans crying in the ash, killing each other over scraps, begging for help from gods that never came. Then they saw hope, not from leaders, but from ordinary people, teachers building underground, schools, engineers smuggling clean water to enemy zones, children planting trees in nuclear shadows. They saw humans fall, again and again. But they always got up. Then came unity, not the kind that's forced but chosen. After the last war, after the final fire, Earth did something no civilization had done before. They listened to each other. They built again, not for power, for survival. And then they reached out to the stars. They came with open hands, and the galaxy laughed at them. mocked their crude ships, scorned their culture, took their resources, lied in treaties, sabotaged them at every step, and Earth watched for decades until the day they were mocked one too many times and they rose. The memory shifted. Now the Varnaki saw burning fleets, falling empires, screaming emperors, human ships appearing from nowhere, obliterating entire military hierarchies in ours. They saw Earth's wrath. But then, something strange, they saw Earth stop, not because it was weak, but because it had proven its point. And then Earth began to build not weapons, but mirrors, not prisons, but invitations, not threats, but warnings. The vision faded. The Varnaki ambassadors wept. And then, at last, the constructs spoke in a single voice, male and female, machine and organic, old and young, all at once. We are humanity. We were broken. Once, we were mocked. But we rose not to dominate, but to endure. And now we say this: peace is offered, not demanded. But if you raise your hand against us, again, know that we are not the storm. We are what survives it. The Varnaki ship returned, not damaged, not altered, but changed. They brought with them not weapons or demands, but understanding for the first time in generations. The Galactic Council voted unanimously. Earth would not be opposed, not because of fear, but because they had seen what Earth truly was, a mirror to everything the galaxy had become, and a door to what it might still be. 1,000 years of dominance had ended, not with invasion, but with a single message that echoed through the minds of all who heard it. You laughed. You mocked, but we survived your cruelty. And now we build a future, with or without you. Spectre. G11 watched the stars from a mountain temple. No weapons, no bodyguards, just silence. Commander Asha stood beside him. They heard. Us, she whispered. He nodded. And now they must decide what kind of galaxy they want to live in. She turned to him. And us. Spectre tilted his head. We've already decided. We'll build. We'll share. We'll defend only when we must. But we will never again beg for a seat at anyone's table. Asha smiled. And if they attack again? He looked out into the void. Then they'll see what the storm truly looks like. The voice of Earth continued to speak, not in anger, but in wisdom, and across the galaxy. The children of fallen empires listened, because the day Earth spoke wasn't just a warning. It was a new beginning, and the laughter that once echoed across the stars, it had been replaced by something far more powerful: respect. The galaxy had gone quiet, once filled with the endless buzz of diplomatic chatter, border conflicts, empire broadcasts, and trade disputes. The stars now whispered. Civilizations still existed, millions of them, but they walked gently now. No more grand parades of warships, no more proud declarations on galactic newswaves, no more mocking of Earth because Earth had shown what it truly was: not a backwater, not a joke, not just another species trying to climb the ladder, but the storm now. As the fires of conquest cooled and the screams of the fallen faded into memory, the galaxy watched in anxious silence to see what humanity would do next, and Earth gave its answer. They built not just fleets or weapons, but monuments, structures that defied the very rules of matter, machines so large and strange that they seemed more like dreams than technology. The first was spotted orbiting the shattered remains of the Zautheri capital moon. It was shaped like a massive, no windows, no obvious propulsion systems, no defensive guns, but it pulsed like a heartbeat, and whenever a ship came too close without invitation, it vanished, not destroyed, not disabled, just ... gone. They called it the Sentinel. No message came from it, no broadcast. But it watched. And from that moment forward, the stars changed. Humanity had begun Phase 2. Commander Asha Velen stood inside the observation sphere above Earth's rebuilt orbital ring, now known across the galaxy as Project Halo. Once, the ring had simply been a collection of satellites and defense turrets, Now, it was a living machine. AI-controlled, crystal-veined, and growing every day. Beneath her boots, thousands of drones moved in organized chaos. Cargoes zipped through transparent tunnels. Holograms flickered. Weapon systems turned not inward but outward, ready for something else. Asha sipped her dark coffee slowly. Her face was unreadable. Spectre G11 stood behind her. "Report," he said in his low, metallic tone. "Platform Sentinel is stable," she replied. "All approach vessels halted at the perimeter. Passive AI confirms no anomalies." No response. "From the vanished vessels?" "None. We believe the Sentinel folds them into stasis fields outside time, not destruction. Containment." Spectre nodded. "Then we are ready to begin." Asha raised an eyebrow. "You're sure the galaxy is ready for this next step?" Spectre turned to her, voice distant. "They mocked us when they thought we were weak. They feared us when we showed them power. Now, let them learn what we've always wanted." Asha tilted her head. "Which is peace, but on our terms." The galaxy held its breath when Earth launched the Beacon Project. Giant obelisks, taller than any skyscraper ever built, began to appear across the galaxy. Not dropped by warships, but quietly installed using planetary drones. On peaceful worlds, on dead moons. Even on floating gas giants, each obelisk was smooth, silent, black as the void. Each one emitted a low hum, barely detectable, but unmistakably human, and each one carried a message. This is not a weapon. This is not a threat. This is a promise. When you are ready to rise, not in power, but in spirit, approach, learn, understand, or stay in silence. Worlds debated what to do. Civilizations that had once ruled others now held emergency sessions just to discuss whether to touch the beacons. Was it a test? A trap? A gift? No one knew, and Earth did not explain. Instead, they built more hundreds, thousands. Meanwhile, in the dark edges of the Andali Rift zone of space, long abandoned due to intense radiation storms and spatial, fractures of structure appeared. The Watchers thought it must be an error. Nothing could survive there. But sensors didn't lie. It was real and growing. A human-built sphere, nearly the size of a planet, humming with impossible energy. No communication, no launch signature, no crew logs. They called it E.I. Dolan. No one who approached it returned. Even probes lost connection. But from deep within it came bursts of soft sounds, snippets of Earth music, ancient languages, even laughter. Galactic historians feared it might be a new weapon, but Earth's AI sent a single public message to every channel. Eidolon is not. For war, it is a mirror. Do not approach until you're ready to see what's behind your own eyes. Even the bravest empires refused to send scouts after that, because by now, they understood something chilling. Humanity wasn't building weapons anymore. They were building truths. Machines that could show a mind its true self. Structures that could unlock emotions buried for generations. Technologies that made war useless not by force, but by revealing how empty it was. Earth hadn't just destroyed empires. They were changing the soul of the galaxy. On the outer edge of Orion's climb, a young alien named Kello Varn stood before one of the beacons. He was nobody important, just a student from a minor trade world. But he had lost everything when the Syrixian Dominion collapsed under Earth's onslaught. His family, his culture, even the books that told his people's history were gone. For months, he had hated Earth. He had screamed at their ships in the sky, had cursed their silence, had begged them to leave. But now, he was tired, so very tired. And the beacon stood before him, silent, now humming softly, so he touched it. His mind blinked, and in an instant he saw, not with eyes, not with data, but with understanding. He saw Earth's long journey, its pain, its wars, its near extinction. He saw their struggle to rise from tribalism, from blood, from greed. He saw the world unite after the final fire, not to conquer, but Two survived together. He saw why they had struck the galaxy, because mocking laughter wasn't just insult. It was a denial of their right to exist, and he saw something else. Earth didn't hate the galaxy. They just refused to be treated like dirt anymore. When Kello opened his eyes, he was crying not from fear, but from shame. And for the first time in his life, he understood why silence was better than arrogance. Back on Earth, the overseers met for the first time in months. They didn't meet in a war room, they met in a forest. Redwood grove atop the bioplateaus of New California. Trees touched the sky. Wind sang through leaves. Birds flew free. Spectre G11 stood beneath an old oak. Commander Asha joined him. Others arrived. Admiral Reese, synth strategist Myra, colonial architect Kiji, and the first AI representative. Orb of blue light humming with ancient wisdom. "We've completed Phase 2, said Asha, and Spectre asked. The galaxy isn't laughing anymore. But they're not resisting either. They're listening. Reese crossed his arms. We gave them peace, but not submission. Mira flickered, because we never wanted them to submit. To understand what pain they brought with their pride, Kiji nodded. The beacons are working. Already hundreds have touched them. Many broke down in grief. Some begged to join. Some vanished, but none returned with arrogance and idling. Spectre asked. The AI's light dimmed slightly. It's changing minds in ways we don't yet understand. Spectre turned to the horizon. Good. Shall we begin Phase 3? Asha asked. He looked at them all. No, not yet. Why? She asked. He paused. Because peace is not enforced. It is earned. We've given the galaxy a mirror. Now we wait to see who dares look into it, who chooses to close their eyes. Across the stars, humanity stopped moving. No more ships launched. No more cities built. No more planets taken. Instead, Earth became still. And in that stillness came a question, one that spread from mouth to mouth, star to star. If this is what Earth builds in silence, what will they do when they speak again? The galaxy had laughed once. They weren't laughing now. They were listening and waiting and watching the humans who had risen from dirt and built something the stars had never seen before. In the vastness of the void, silence can be mistaken for peace. But the galaxy had learned far too late that silence from Earth was never peace. It was a pause, a breath, a choice. And now, for the first time in all recorded time, the stars themselves seemed to listen, because Earth wasn't hiding, Earth wasn't attacking. Earth was teaching, and the galaxy, what was left of it, was finally ready to understand. Not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. It began on the forgotten world of Draylen 4, a mining planet once owned by the Elteri Dominion. Its people had survived centuries of slavery, invasions, and civil war. They'd seen conquerors come and go, each more cruel than the last. But it was not until Earth's emissaries arrived, disarmed, calm, and asking for nothing but something. Strange happened. The mines stopped. The weapons were buried, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the people of Draylen listened. They didn't receive threats or demands. They received seeds, instructions for building hydroponic farms, books on self-governance, transmissions of Earth's history, not the edited victories, but the raw truth, the pain, the failures, the scars. The people of Draylen cried, and then they began to plant. News spread faster than any weapon could fly. Worlds that had never spoken to each other began sharing Earth's transmissions. Not just the military records, but the songs, the stories, the faces of real humans, old, young, broken, healed. They saw what Earth had endured. And for the first time, the galaxy understood. Humanity had not survived the galaxy's cruelty out of strength. They had survived because they had something deeper. Conviction on the core. World of Hellion Prime, once the capital of the Galactic Unity Council, delegates met in silence. The chambers that once roared with prideful shouting now held only whispers. The Varnaki ambassador spoke first. Humanity does not seek rule, the Grell Admiral replied. Yet they can rule us all. They choose not to. Why? Then, from the back of the chamber, a human stepped forward. Not a soldier, not a spy. A historian. She wore no armor, carried no weapons. But when she spoke, every translator on the planet struggled to keep up with the weight of her words. We do not rule, she said, because we remember what it feels like to be ruled by others. When your ancestors crushed us, we didn't forget. We built. We waited. Not to rise above you, but to rise above what you turned us into. A dozen delegates began to protest. She raised one hand. They stopped. We have built machines that can unmake worlds, she continued. We have fleets hidden beyond dark matter, waiting in the event you betray us again. We have weapons that defy physics, and soldiers that don't bleed. But none of that is why we matter. She looked around. We matter because we remember, because we feel, because despite everything, we choose to try, again and again, even when you laugh, even when you betray, even when you kill. She stepped down, and no one dared speak for a long, long time in the Outer Rim systems. Where pirate clans once ruled with terror, something even stranger happened. The human ship Nomad Whisper appeared, not to attack, but to offer the pirates. Confused. Boarded it, they found no crew, only messages. One was audio. A human voice said, "You can keep stealing from the weak, or you can become something better. We've done both. We know how it ends. Choose." And beside the message was a single crate. Inside was a blueprint, not for weapons, but for clean water systems, solar arrays, and sustainable tech. A chance to become more than thieves. Some clans laughed and tried to steal more. They disappeared. Others hesitated. They were invited, and within cycles, the first pirate-led peace colony formed. It was imperfect. It was messy, but it worked. And again, the message spread. Earth does not fear you. Earth offers you a chance. On Earth itself, things were different. The people didn't cheer their new power. They didn't celebrate the galaxy's awe. They kept building. They knew the stars were watching, so they lived like examples. Schools opened with alien children. Farmers sent food to starving colonies on the edge of the Orion Arm. Former enemies were invited to rebuild on Earth's terms, with Earth's hard-earned lessons, and above it all, the orbiting monument known as the Voice of Earth continued to broadcast. But now, its messages had changed. No longer warnings, but invitations. The final understanding came, unexpectedly, from a species no one had considered. The Zrella cold-blooded species that lived on methane-rich moons, considered primitive by most, sent a single ship to Earth. Slow, rusted, unarmed. Inside were only 5 beings, and a question. The Zrell leader, as heavy with age, asked Earth's diplomats, "We have suffered. Not as you have, but enough. We were forgotten. What should we do now?" The human representative didn't answer immediately. He stood, walked to the Zrell, placed a hand on the elder's shoulder. "You start by telling your story. And then, we help you write the next one." The elder wept. So did everyone watching that night, across the galaxy. Something changed. No declarations, no invasions, just a single message. Broadcast from the Voice of Earth. "We remember your cruelty, but we offer peace, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to not need revenge. Choose, fight, us, and face extinction, or walk beside us, and rebuild everything you broke." World after world chose to join Earth's alliance, not because of fear, but because Earth had done something no empire had ever done, survived hatred and chosen compassion, and the galaxy understood. At last, Earth was not just another power. It was the balance, the proof that pain could birth peace, that war could teach wisdom, that laughter could be replaced by learning, and that in the silence, after devastation, humanity had become something far more terrifying than a conqueror, a teacher, In the final scene of the last transmission, a child sits under the stars on Earth. She looks up at the sky, tracing constellations on a glowing tablet. Mom asks, "Are they still scared of us?" Her mother kneels beside her, smiles gently. "No, sweetheart, they're not scared anymore." Why? Because they finally understand. The child blinks. What did they understand? The mother looks up at the stars. That we were never trying to be gods or monsters. Just survivors who learned how to hope again. Galaxy would never be the same. It had laughed at humanity, and for a time, humanity had answered with fire. But now it answered with light. And the stars, for the first time in countless cycles, had something to follow. Not fear, not command, but a path, a story, a future, and Earth. It watched not with anger, but with eyes wide open, because it knew the galaxy had finally understood.